my name is Tyler Copeland. I know we only have a brief amount of time this morning. Part 2 starts same time tomorrow, so I think some of you will be there as well. So I'm just kind of going to run through the new Promethean panels that's going to be in your classroom. Super informal, so if you have any questions or need to see anything that I showed you on this, just raise your hand and shout them out on me. But before I start, do yourself a favor and write down www.learnpromethean.com. So that is a website, and it's free, self-paced PD. So like there'll be little videos of everything I show you today. So if you want to go back to that website in the future, you can use that as a resource. And again, it's really just everything that I'm going to show you today. So without further ado, here we go. All right. So hopefully by tomorrow morning, most of you will have one of these in your classroom. So it's a 75-inch active panel. You'll have a little cardboard box. In that cardboard box, you'll get 4 pens, an eraser, and a remote control. Right? So when you walk in the morning, there's these 2 little dots. They're little sensors. You don't have to worry about it. Just so you know, when you walk in, you might hear a click. The panel will just start booting up. And to turn it on, you can either use the remote or you can just walk up and tap it. So everything I'm going to show you for the next 15-20 minutes is without a computer connected to it. So the nice thing about these panels is that you can use them without having to connect your MacBook. But I'll show you probably tomorrow how to connect it and how to also cast it to the display. So on the display, there's a main menu that you can get to from the left, bottom, right? Does everyone see that? It's just these little arrows on the display. So think of this like using a tablet. So I'm kind of just going to run through all of the buttons up here so you get an idea of what they are. I have a couple corny jokes. Where do you keep your stuff in school? Shout it out.
We can't see. In the locker.
Yes, in the locker, right? So if you hit the locker button, you'll see it opens up to like a tray of apps, similar to what you might have experienced on any mobile device in the past 20 years. So there's some apps in here. What's one of the things you might want to do is just get straight out to the internet, right? So does everyone see this button that looks like the Chrome icon? If you touch that, it'll just launch a browser for you. So you can get out to the internet without having to connect your computer. I'm not sure whose classroom this is, but they have lots of tabs open, as you can see. Lots and lots of tabs. So this is, you know, has everyone here used a computer in the past 10 years? You know how at the top with the minimize, maximize, XL? That's all just happening below here on this gray toolbar on this panel, right? So you'll see when I grab the bottom of the window, I can move it around. If I grab the corner, I can scale it to make it bigger or smaller. If I hit the arrows that look like they push out, it'll make it full screen. The same thing goes for the minimize button. And then does everyone see these 2 little buttons right here? It's like a white block on the right and a white block on the left. So those are like tab windows when you want to have 2 windows open at the same time. So you can have multiple apps running on the panel at the same time. We'll come back to this in a couple of minutes. Don't worry. Any questions so far? All right, perfect. What's a website you might want to go to? I'm going to make one more tab, right? So it's just like a mobile browser. Right? So when you go to search for something, you'll notice a keyboard will just appear. So you can move the keyboard up on the screen by grabbing this little Mickey Mouse glove, and then you can type. A nice little add-on feature is like a wireless keyboard or mouse. So then you can walk around the classroom, and you could be controlling the panel while you're walking around the classroom. So let's say we wanted to go to
Pebble Go.
What was it?
Pebble Go.
Pebble Go? Like a little rock?
Yep.
And go?
Yep.
So you can just go straight to a website, and you can log in and start using it. Cool? Some other apps that are in the locker, just quickly to show you. Has anybody ever gone to like timer.com or anything like that? So there's timers built in. So you'll notice this will just float, and this will stay on top of the panel no matter where you are. do we still break classrooms into like groups to work on a project or a task? So if you want to have multiple timers up, there's a little plus button right here. You can have up to 4 timers on the screen at a time, and they can be color coded, right?
Where did you get the original timer? Sorry, where was the original timer?
So the original timer, can anyone answer that question?
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
So
Thank you for listening.
how do we get to the locker?
The arrow. The arrow at the top.
Locker timer, right? And the same thing goes for spinner, right? So there's also spinners on here. Anybody have a jar full of popsicle sticks for pulling names or anything like that? So the same thing goes for spinners, right? So you can have multiple spinners up on the panel as well. You'll see they both say colors, but what if we wanted to do a class list or something like that?
No.
Does everyone see that where it says colors and has a little drop down arrow? If you touch that, oops, I changed it to alphabet by accident. There's some pre-made ones, but you can hit this create new button, and then you can create class list. And then also because it's 2021, this little settings wheel here, everyone see this? Right, so if we go ahead and tap that, you can have each item selected only once. So whether it was a student's name and you want to make sure everybody got a fair chance, or with subject matter and you want to make sure you cover every topic, that will allow to make sure that everything that goes through on the spinner gets selected. Cool? Questions?
How many of those name lists do you have?
A lot.
So I could do like multiple classes.
Yeah, you can have all of your periods. I'm not sure on the exact count, but and you can have up to 49 slices on one spinner. So I don't think you have that many students in your class. Okay, any questions? All right, I'm going to keep moving.
Sorry,
That's okay.
I might be getting ahead. Is there a way to reduce the noise when you click on the keyboard? Is there a way to get rid of that noise?
There is. I'll cover that in part 2 if you're here tomorrow.
I
Remind me.
am.
That's like a settings feature.
I'll bring it in. Sorry.
So I know some of you rotate classrooms, right? And so you might not be in a dedicated room. So I'm going to leave the locker button alone. And then does everyone see this button that says owner? So there's a button right here. If you hit owner, you'll notice you can sign out. And you can create multiple users on a panel. So then when you go to a certain room, you'll just tap into your account and all your settings and your lessons will be there. All right?
Can I ask a question? With the classrooms where the board is, that teacher have to create for the people coming in their room, or would we go in a room and would we sign in to that board from our account?
So you would physically, like if you go to 2 different rooms, you would have 2 different accounts on the panel. But I can show you tomorrow probably how a lesson you can put it on like a flash stick or save it to the cloud and pull it down from the other room. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Does anyone in here use Google Classroom or the G Drive, right? So you'll also notice if I hit this owner button, can anyone tell me what that little button looks like? Yes. So if you go ahead and hit the cloud button, you'll notice there's an option for Google Drive. So I'm not going to do it now because we're short on time. But if you hit this Google Drive button, this will allow anything you do on here on the whiteboard app I'm going to show you to be saved straight to your Google Drive. So then you could pull it down from any panel. So that kind of answers your question. All right? Good? Okay. Next, can anyone guess what the home button does? This is the most boring button on the panel. Yes. Ta-da. That's it. Right? So if you ever want to get back to square one, just hit the home button and it'll bring it. Okay? All right. Now this is where a lot of the stuff is. So this is the whiteboard app, right? And I got there just by hitting the main menu again, which we can get to from anywhere. And I hit this little icon that says whiteboard, right? So this is an infinite digital whiteboard space. So I can, you guys still do nows? Right? So I can write something, I can move it, I can make it bigger or smaller, right? If I want to delete it, I can just tap it hit the trash can, right? So an important thing to know is we're going to kind of run through this real quick, probably for the next 10 minutes, and then part 2 will cover everything, right? So when I'm using the stylus, everyone can see that right now it's selected as the cursor, but I'm using the stylus to write, so I can write and move something with my finger. The main difference here is if I were to have pen selected, and I went to write and move something, it's just going to keep on writing, right? So you can only write with the pen and move with your finger when the cursor is selected and you're using the stylus. And that's like a nice little tool because a lot of teachers like to be able to write and move stuff. It just gives a little more dexterity when you're using the pen. Cool.
And you can save the whiteboard.
What was that question?
Can you save the whiteboard?
You can, right? So I'm gonna go to some blank space. You'll notice I'm just touching with my finger on some blank whiteboard space. And I'm gonna scroll. If you look in the top right, you'll notice it's an infinite whiteboard space, right?
Wow.
So I can go back to those notes if I wanted to. So let's say this was what's today's lesson that you're working
Annotations.
on? Okay, annotations, right? And I wanted to save this as my annotations lesson. Everyone's familiar with like the 3 dots in Google? So this is like your file, open, save, save as. So if I wanted to hit save as, I would just save it as my annotations lesson. And then I'm just going to get a file new, right? So you can see this is just blank. And if I want to open it up, how would I do that? Come back up here, hit open, and then you'll see my annotations lesson.
Okay, so what if I did this in one class and I want to open it in another class? If I'm logging in as my own user, it should be there, right?
Great question, yes. But in order for that to be there, you need, remember that cloud button we were talking about? You need that set up, right? So once you go through that cloud button setup, when you go into here, file open, there'll be a third line item right here. It'll have your G drive there. You'll be able to open the lesson straight.
Do I have to set up the cloud in each class that I go to, or once I do it in my own settings?
So you have to do it on each panel that you use.
Whoa, that's 30 classes.
Ooh. That's just the way it is.
Okay, well.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to quickly run through this, right? I know it's this year. You probably never had more than one kid up here at the same time. But is there ever an instance in the past where you've had multiple students up? Right? Maybe we might want them to work on a math problem or something. Any math teachers? Okay. What is x equal, right? So just running down here, does everyone see this button? It looks like two. Is that too confusing? It looks like 2 little heads, right? So you'll notice as soon as I touch this button, right, it drops the teacher tools down and gives the students 2 toolbars, right? So now I can have 2 kids up here. They don't need to use the stylus, but they can, and they can start working on the problem, right? What's nice about this is that if they go to erase, it's not going to erase anything that was written before the screen was split, because that's assuming it's teacher-led instruction. And does anybody know how we can make like a little game out of this? Think back to what I showed you like 7 minutes ago. Right, so now you can still go into your locker, you can pull up a timer, the spinner, and it'll all sit on top of this. So you could have them do like a math race or an English race if you're working on sentence structure or whatever. Cool?
So one stylus? There's one stylus?
No, there's 4.
Oh, there's 4.
Yeah. Here's 2. I don't know where the other 2 are.
They only get 2.
If you want the rest of them, see the guy in the back.
Do you need more than one?
No, I just don't know if you assume we're not most of them. I know where you live. I'm not counting the other 2.
So really quickly in the essence of time, right? So there's also some math tools right? So if you want to have kids with rulers, right? You'll notice you can pull a ruler up, but the ruler isn't going to just stop a line from writing. You actually need to interact with it. So you'll notice when I touch on the side, there's a blue indicator. Right? Did anyone see that when I did that? And it'll move and scale with you. And to get rid of it, you just hit the X in the middle. You guys use protractors? Okay, cool. There's also a protractor, right? So if you want to make it bigger or smaller, you grab it in these two little areas and just pinch and zoom. If you want to rotate it, just grab it and move it around. So let's say we wanted to measure a 90-degree angle, and then we wanted to divide it into fractions, right? So then you can break it up, right? So that's a protractor. Cool? All right, so to get out of dual person mode, you just come back up here and press this button. So because we're working on an infinite whiteboard space, I'm just going to scroll down. Okay? The next button right here is graph paper. Do we ever need graph paper?
Yeah.
So it's a little hard to see because of the blue lines, right? So if we tap it again, you'll notice when we choose our paper, you can either choose these circles or these little dashes. The dashes will change the line color. And then you can use a pinch and zoom to make the graph paper bigger or smaller, whatever works for you. There's some other papers in here. If you have like musical staff paper or writing paper, etc. What's so funny about that?
You're a music teacher.
Perfect.
That
Okay.
alone makes it.
I think it's close enough. Great. All right, next button down, it looks like a little black square with like a little mountaintop. This is your gallery. So there's a whole bunch of pre-sorted charts and templates in here. So if we want to Venn diagram something, we can open it up. And remember, everything that I showed you, you can fall back on. So now, like, we can split the screen and have two kids come up and work on the Venn diagram, right? So just think of everything that I showed you and how you can tie it together. I know we're only on a couple more minutes, so I know where we'll pick up tomorrow. There's also, when we touch this gallery, you'll notice this says charts and templates, but this says gallery right here. Right? You'll notice it's empty. So remember the first thing we did when we turned the panel on is we went out to the internet. So we got there by going to our locker, right? And opening up Chrome. So remember those tab buttons on the bottom? So now we can have multiple apps open at the same time. So like, let's say there was a picture of I don't know what the picture of a lion maybe. I can just search for lion. I can go to images, right? And like maybe I want to get this picture of the lion in there. So there's a button. It says capture. You know when you like take a selfie on your iPhone and you crop it? This is the same exact thing. So I can hit capture, and this would also work if your computer was connected to it or anything. So I like this picture, so I'm just going to choose this guy. And now I could have one student searching over here, and I could have another one talking about the lions, right? And then if I wanted to come back to this picture at some point, I go to my gallery, and it's there. I'm hoping that overwhelming anybody. Any questions so far? No? We're all good? Okay. The rest of this is pretty easy breezy. Just so you know, the software, or like the way this app is built, so let's say we were talking about numbers, but I only wanted to talk about 1, 2, and 3, right? And I want them to be separate from the rest. We'll recognize a timing difference if I just like stop and talk for 2 seconds. Then these are separate things. And so like if I'm teaching sentence structure and I want to talk about nouns or verbs, like that's a good tool to remember, or if you're doing it. For pen, remember, you just select your pen, you can change your color. You can change your thickness by tapping on it. This will just make it thicker. Same thing goes for the highlighter. If you want to add a color, it'll always drop in as the last color. And then there's an erase button right here. You should be able to use your palm, but it's COVID, so I would always recommend just using this eraser. This will just stick to your side here. And then the next button down is just a clear all button. So this will just clear all of your annotations. You'll notice I went to move the screen, and it didn't move because why? I'm still selected as the eraser. So I need to be selected as the cursor, and then you move up. So that clear all didn't delete my Venn diagram or my line. If I want to trash them, I just tap them, hit the trash button. And then again, this is your math tools, and like any good button, there's an undo redo button, so we can get all of our notes back. Right? So in the essence of time, that's the end of part 1 today. Part 2 tomorrow, I'll show you. It'll be probably the same length of time, connecting your computer both wired and wirelessly, and then kind of tying your computer into everything you saw today. So, good?
Yeah.
And really take advantage of that website I told you at the beginning. It has everything I've shown you and a little more.
Can you repeat that again?
Yeah, just Google learnpromethean.com.
Okay.